The panic room, designed to be impenetrable, held a secret on October 26, 2023. A murder that should have been impossible. Arthur Sterling, a reclusive tech mogul, meticulously maintained a nightly ritual, dinner in this hermetically sealed sanctuary. For 5 years it was his fortress until that night. Let me walk you through what happened. Clara Thorne, Sterling's personal assistant, made her routine call at 11:30 p.m. No response. This was unusual. Sterling was a creature of habit, known for his precision. His email inbox, which Thorne compulsively checked every 5 minutes, remained empty of his nightly instructions. The next morning, October 27th, at precisely 8 a.m., Thorne, now genuinely concerned, used her master key to enter the mansion. What she found was chilling. The panic room remained sealed from the inside. That detail matters. Detective Miles Corbin arrived just after 9 a.m. A quick assessment confirmed the impossible. No forced entry, no disturbed perimeter. The room was a perfect sealed box. This isn't just a murder case, it's a paradox. Forensic teams, led by Dr. Evelyn Reed, a woman known for her meticulous labeling of every item in her fridge, gained access to the room by 11 a.m. Inside, slumped over his desk, was Arthur Sterling, dead. No apparent struggle. Just a silent, undeniable ending. Initial reports indicated poisoning, fast-acting. But the critical question remained, how? How does poison enter a room sealed from the inside, with no visible entry point, no breach? Security footage from the mansion's exterior for the crucial hours confirmed no one had entered or left the property. The scene presented a locked room mystery. A true investigator's puzzle. Every piece of visible evidence only deepened the enigma of how a man, in his own fortress, could be so completely vulnerable. And what of the weapon? The delivery method? The official version leaves this unexplained. A witness emerges. The panic room, designed to be impregnable, offered no clues of forced entry, no shattered glass, no damaged locks. Just an unsettling silence, disturbed only by the rising concern of Clara Thorne, Arthur Sterling's personal assistant. She'd found the mansion unnaturally still, the usual hum of its complex systems muted. It was 8 a.m. on October 27th, and her master key had let her into the estate, but not into Sterling's nightly sanctuary. The sealed room remained sealed. Her attempts to contact him the previous night, precisely at 11:30 p.m. for his evening report, had gone unanswered, an anomaly in Sterling's meticulous routine. That detail matters. Detective Miles Corbin arrived at 9:15 a.m., stepping into this unnerving tableau. He saw the integrity of the panic room and immediately understood the challenge. This wasn't a typical break-in. This was a paradox. Inside, Arthur Sterling was dead. Dr. Evelyn Reed's forensics team, deploying specialized equipment, finally breached the room at 11 a.m. They found Sterling slumped over his desk, undisturbed, with no signs of struggle. The initial autopsy, completed by 2 p.m., pointed to a fast-acting poison, but the delivery method remained a profound mystery. How does poison enter a sealed environment? The case had all the hallmarks of an impossible crime, but then, on October 29th, a potential crack in the solid wall of mystery appeared. Thomas Miller, a disgruntled former employee, called in a tip. Miller, known for his frequent rambling emails, claimed Sterling had many enemies. That Sterling was a man who collected grudges as diligently as he collected rare first editions. He painted a picture of a tech mogul who had crossed many lines, alienated many people. The police, faced with a dead man in a locked room, had to consider every lead, no matter how tenuous. Was Miller's call a distraction, a red herring designed to mislead? Or did it point to a motive that could perhaps explain how the impossible had occurred? Victim's final hours. The panic room, designed to be impenetrable from the outside, held a chilling secret. Arthur Sterling, the reclusive tech mogul, had been found dead inside, but where was the killer? That's where the witness statement from Clara Thorne, Arthur Sterling's personal assistant, becomes crucial. Let me walk you through what she told investigators. Clara's account starts at 7 p.m. on October 26th. This was Sterling's usual time for his solo dinner within the hermetically sealed panic room. A nightly ritual, she confirmed, for the past 5 years. He was a creature of habit and precision. But then, at 11:30 p.m., Thorne attempted her nightly contact, a routine check for his report. No response. This was unusual. Sterling was meticulous, almost pathologically so. A missed report was not like him. That detail matters. Clara waited. Her concern grew overnight. By 8 a.m. on October 27th, she used her master key to enter the mansion. The panic room, she stated, was still sealed from the inside. There was no forced entry. No sign of a struggle. Just an unsettling silence. The evidence suggests a perfectly locked room with no plausible entry or exit for an attacker. The questions began immediately. How was a man murdered within his own fortress? However, what Clara Thorne describes as a growing concern, her actions, when reviewed against the full timeline, raise an important question. If a missed nightly report from a man known for his strict routine was so unusual, why did she wait a full 8.5 hours before using her master key to check on him? 8.5 hours for a man known to be so precise. That's not a small inconsistency. The official version leaves this unexplained, and, as we track the victim's final hours, this gap in Clara Thorne's narrative becomes increasingly problematic. The missing entry. The panic room, a fortress designed to keep everything out, had a hidden vulnerability that Detective Corbin couldn't shake. He'd gone over the entry points, the air vents, the reinforced walls. Nothing. There was no physical breach, yet Arthur Sterling was dead. Corbin decided to meticulously review the logs from Sterling's elaborate smart home system, a system so complex it practically ran itself. He spent days poring over millions of lines of data, temperature adjustments, light activations, even Sterling's preferred evening music playlists. Most of it was routine, sterile, digital background noise. But then, on November 5th, at precisely 4 p.m., something minor, almost imperceptible, registered in the system. A flicker. A network activity spike. It lasted only milliseconds, a ghost in the machine, almost deleted by the system itself before it could be properly recorded. This was the exact estimated time of Sterling's death. That detail matters, because it occurred within the hermetically sealed environment of the panic room, a space supposedly cut off from all external network access. How could this happen? What exactly caused it? The log entry itself was encrypted, a series of meaningless characters to the untrained eye. But its presence, its mere existence, created a new breach in the seemingly unbreachable room. What doesn't add up is the fact that Sterling was known for his extreme security measures. He had multiple layers of firewalls. He employed a dedicated IT security team to sweep his networks daily. This brief, encrypted network burst, it shouldn't have been possible. It was too precise, too deliberate, for an accident, too short for an external hack. The official version of events, the one that pointed to a physically locked room, could not account for this digital anomaly. It suggested an internal command, a ghost in the machine that opened an entirely new path for the investigation. This wasn't a broken timeline, it was a missing entry that completely changed the framework of the locked room paradox, suggesting the killer wasn't outside, but somehow, terrifyingly, deeply inside the system itself. Contradictory alibis. The micro-residue of synthetic toxin found on Sterling's antique fountain pen had narrowed the scope significantly, but the delivery mechanism, and the killer's identity, remained a ghost in the locked room. Now, the investigation shifted. Detective Corbin turned his attention to Clara Thorne, Arthur Sterling's personal assistant. She was the one who first reported Sterling missing, the one with the master key to the mansion, the one with direct access to Sterling's meticulously maintained schedule. Her alibi initially seemed impenetrable. Thorne claimed she was at home that evening alone, working on Sterling's extensive correspondence. She provided precise times, detailing emails sent, documents reviewed. It was almost too perfect, an alibi constructed with an almost photographic memory of mundane tasks. That precision, usually a sign of reliability, actually raised Corbin's suspicions. Why such meticulous detail for a routine night? The calendar, according to her statement, confirmed she had no other appointments. Nothing out of the ordinary. However, here's where it gets strange. The mansion's smart home system logs. When cross-referenced with Thorne's email server records, a discrepancy appeared. Thorne claimed she was drafting a crucial financial report for Sterling between 7:30 p.m. and 9 p.m. on the night of the murder. But the system logs, which automatically record network activity, showed no outgoing data packets from her home network during that specific window. Not even background system updates. Her computer was connected to Sterling's private network, a detail that matters because it should have registered activity. Then there's the witness statement from Sterling's gardener, an older man named Miguel. He was off duty that night, but walked his dog past Thorne's apartment building around 8:15 p.m. Miguel distinctly remembered seeing Thorne's car, a unique vintage sedan, being driven away from her building, not towards it. He noted the time because he found it unusual for her to be out so late on a weeknight, especially given her rigid schedule. So, we have conflicting accounts, Thorne's detailed alibi placing her at home, and the digital records, corroborated by a witness, suggesting she was elsewhere. The network logs show her home connection dormant when it should have been active with work. Miguel's statement hints she was driving away from her residence. This isn't a small inconsistency. This is a crack in an otherwise perfectly constructed story. The official version of her alibi was beginning to unravel, and the implications were unsettling. Security footage, Anomaly. The previous chapter left us with conflicting alibis, and Detective Corbin's apprehension regarding Clara Thorne. But now, we circle back to an earlier point in the investigation, a critical piece of evidence that, at first glance, seemed to solidify the impossible nature of this locked room murder. We're talking about the mansion's security footage. Here's what the timeline shows. On October 28, 2023, 2 days after Arthur Sterling's death was discovered, investigators pored over every second of external security camera feeds from the Sterling estate. They meticulously reviewed the recordings from the night of October 26th, the crucial hours when Arthur Sterling was poisoned inside his sealed panic room. This was meant to either confirm or deny any physical intrusion. Now, recall the primary paradox. Sterling was found dead in a hermetically sealed room, locked from the inside. There was no forced entry, no broken windows, no hidden passages. The room was, by all accounts, impenetrable. The exterior security footage needed to corroborate this, to show a property undisturbed. And it did. The cameras, strategically placed around the entire perimeter, showed nothing. No one entered the sprawling estate, no one left. Not a single person, not a single vehicle, approached or departed the mansion between the hours of 7 p.m. on October 26 and 8 a.m. on October 27, when Clara Thorne first arrived. The gate remained closed, the grounds still. This confirmed the locked room scenario from the outside. It was, initially, a crushing confirmation. If no one could get in or out, how was Sterling murdered? The footage seemed to remove the possibility of an external assailant entirely, pushing the case further into the realm of the incomprehensible. Detective Corbin and his team replayed the footage, frame by frame, looking for anything, a shadow, a flicker, some anomaly, but there was nothing. The official interpretation was clear, the perimeter was secure, no one breached it. But here's where it gets strange. This seemingly airtight evidence, this lack of any intrusion on camera, actually deepens the mystery rather than resolving it. If the poisoning mechanism required some form of physical delivery, and if no one entered, then how was the toxin administered? The security footage, while confirming the physical integrity of the perimeter, did not explain the mechanism of death. Instead, it moved the point of attack from external to somewhere within the system itself. This anomaly, this absolute emptiness on camera, forced investigators to rethink their definition of an intruder entirely. It begged the question, what if the intrusion wasn't physical at all? The hidden motive. Richard Sterling already had a significant motive, one that reached back years before the murder of his brother Arthur. Detective Corbin knew this. The estranged brothers, Arthur and Richard Sterling, had been locked in a bitter family feud that transcended mere sibling rivalry, escalating into legal and financial battles over a vast inheritance. This wasn't just old family drama, this was a decades-long war, and it had shaped both their lives. Richard, known for his volatile temper and lavish lifestyle, had repeatedly tried to challenge Arthur's control over the family fortune, citing alleged psychological instability and questionable business practices. These attempts, documented in numerous legal filings and private correspondences, consistently failed. The paper trail, a thick dossier of lawsuits and countersuits, painted a clear picture of Richard's mounting frustration. Each defeat fueled his resentment, pushing him further into debt and desperation. Let's look at the financial records. Court documents reveal Richard Sterling was facing substantial personal bankruptcies, exacerbated by high-stakes gambling habits. He was, to put it mildly, running out of options. The official version of Arthur's will, which Corbin obtained, left nearly everything to various charities, with Richard receiving a mere pittance, a final, deliberate insult from his brother. This detail matters. It provided not just a motive, but a powerful, desperate, and deeply personal one. The security footage anomaly and the unyielding locked room suggested an insider, someone with intimate knowledge of the mansion. Suddenly, Richard Sterling, Arthur's own brother, began to fit that narrative far too perfectly. What doesn't add up, however, is how he could have possibly executed the murder from outside the sealed room. Or could he have? That's where the investigation needed to dig deeper. A family secret. The official record states that on October 30th, 2023, just 3 days after Arthur Sterling's body was discovered, Detective Corbin interviewed Sterling's estranged brother, Richard Sterling. This wasn't a routine check. This was a direct follow-up to a tip from a disgruntled former employee, Thomas Miller, which, while not leading directly to a suspect, did hint at Sterling's complex personal life. Richard Sterling, a man with a penchant for expensive whiskey and high-stakes poker, confirmed what many in Sterling's inner circle already suspected, a deep-seated, long-standing family feud. This wasn't just sibling rivalry. It was a battle rooted in inheritance, specifically over the family's ancestral estate and Arthur's rapid ascent in the tech world. Richard felt marginalized, overlooked, and according to Corbin's notes, intensely resentful. He spoke of Arthur in cold, clinical terms, rarely using his name, preferring instead my brother or him. What doesn't add up is the degree of his animosity and how it escalated from resentment to a motive for murder. The detective pressed, asking about the nature of their last communication. Richard claimed it had been years, a terse exchange over a legal document, nothing more. But the paper trail, as we've seen, often tells a different story. And here, in the cold light of the investigation, Richard Sterling's casual dismissal of his brother's passing, his almost rehearsed indifference, began to feel less like grief and more like something else entirely. Something colder. What was Richard Sterling truly hiding behind his controlled facade? The forensic breakthrough. The locked room, a puzzle within a puzzle. The method of death, a fast-acting poison, was clear. But how was it delivered to Arthur Sterling, sealed inside his impenetrable panic room? This was the question that continued to haunt Detective Corbin. The internal toxicology reports were definitive. No struggle, no signs of forced entry, just a man, dead at his desk, seemingly by an invisible hand. This is where forensic pathologist Dr. Evelyn Reed became central to the investigation. Her meticulous examination of the scene of Sterling's belongings began to shift the entire trajectory of the case. While others focused on what was missing, Dr. Reed focused on the infinitesimal. She started with Arthur Sterling's daily rituals. A man of habit, he always used the same antique fountain pen for his notes, a personal touch in a world of digital devices. It was an object he held every single day. Dr. Reed understood that the ordinary objects, often overlooked, could hold the most extraordinary clues. That detail matters. After days of exhaustive analysis under a high-powered microscope, Dr. Reed made a discovery. On the grip of Sterling's antique fountain pen, a minute, almost imperceptible residue. It was barely visible to the naked eye. This wasn't dust or common grime. This was a substance. Further analysis, painstakingly slow, confirmed her initial suspicion. The residue matched a rare, synthetic toxin, not just any poison but one specifically engineered. The very same toxin that killed Arthur Sterling. This finding ripped a hole in the assumption that the poison had to be airborne or stealthily introduced from outside. It pointed directly to contact. But contact with whom, or with what? If Sterling held the pen, and the pen contained the toxin, how did it get there, and why would he then use it? The implications were immediate and staggering. The poison wasn't delivered externally. It was integrated into Sterling's environment, into his routine. The invisible hand wasn't a metaphor anymore. It was an ingenious mechanism. This breakthrough narrowed the field dramatically. It meant the killer didn't need to breach the panic room. They needed to place the toxin somehow onto an object Arthur Sterling would inevitably handle. And that object was his most prized possession, his fountain pen. The locked room wasn't breached, it was weaponized from within. This is where the case truly began to turn. The focus shifted from the external, impossible entry to the internal, subtle betrayal. What kind of person could execute such a precise, intimate act of murder? Unraveling the paradox. The final puzzle piece clicked into place. The very system designed for Arthur Sterling's protection became his undoing. On November 10, 11 a.m., Richard Sterling was finally arrested. He denied everything, of course, but the evidence now presented by Detective Corbin and his team was overwhelming. It wasn't just Clara Thorne's confession, detailing how she deployed the modified aerosol delivery system, disguised as a routine air purification refill. It was the financial transfers. A clear paper trail leading from Richard Sterling's offshore accounts directly to Thorne. That's not a small inconsistency. Then, on November 12, 10 a.m., forensic analysis of that critical network spike revealed something even deeper. A remote access program. This wasn't just a one-off hack. This program had been installed years prior, dormant, waiting. Thorne had exploited it. She used Sterling's own climate control system, the very air he breathed, as the delivery mechanism for the synthetic toxin Dr. Reed had identified. A silent, internal assault in a room designed to be impenetrable from the outside. The public naturally reacted with shock and fascination. The impenetrable locked room murder, a staple of fiction, had been unraveled. But this case, like so many, forces us to look beyond the immediate facts and timelines. It reveals the corrosive power of greed, fueled by a long-standing family feud. It speaks to the insidious nature of manipulation, how Richard Sterling preyed on Thorne's vulnerabilities, coercing her into complicity. And it shows us the extraordinary lengths human beings will go to, when driven by a desire for power or revenge. Yet, even with a conviction, some questions linger. Did Arthur Sterling, with all his paranoia and meticulous planning, ever suspect the true vulnerability of his sanctuary? Did he, in his isolation, unwittingly invite the very betrayal he so meticulously guarded against? The case of Arthur Sterling's locked room murder is closed. But what it reveals about human nature, that story continues. Don't miss our next investigation on the evidence log. And if you found this deep dive compelling, please like and subscribe. Case closed. For now.